They may sound nuts, so do the Wright brothers. Now, here's Fleeger and Briggs.
Relax. It's just sports with Fleeger and Briggs. Welcome into It's Just Sports here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network. Check out everything 12-Ounce Sports has going on over at 12OunceSportsNetwork.com and at 12-Ounce Sports on Twitter. That's 12OZ Sports on the Twitter. And, of course, you can follow your boys, asylumfootball@gmail.com, asylumfantasysports.com for full-fledged re-airs of the show if you can't find them on 12 Ounce, or if you just want to check out what we got going there, and at Asylum Football on Twitter if you want to interact with your boys.
You betcha. And don't forget Zingo TV, channel 761 for replays of the show and a whole lot of other good things. Drop us a line, asylumfootball@gmail.com, or it's just sports123@gmail.com. We've got 2 Gmail accounts, and
that's when you made it big, when you got 2 Gmail accounts, baby.
Man.
And, of course, today's show is brought to you on 12-Ounce Sports by Seat Giant. Use the promo code 12-Ounce Sports. That's 12OZ Sports on Seat Giant. Get yourself to a game. Get yourself a tailgate in at a great price over at Seat Giant. So,
you betcha. And it's for concerts and everything else, too, so check them out.
Talk about a dead period in the sports calendar, Rick. I'm not a big NBA fan, but they're on bye this week, essentially, as there are no NBA games till Thursday. A little bit of hockey, a little bit of college hoops. We're just starting to see the beginnings of the cap casualties in the NFL. Spring training just getting going. It's kind of just all manufactured drama in the sports world right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of important stuff going on, but it has to do with what we want to talk about.
Right.
Albeit March Madness, Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah. We're just almost to a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So that, the things are, it's taking some shape, though. Albeit college basketball, it doesn't seem to be.
No.
Louisville getting knocked off over the weekend badly by a very, what you would call, mediocre Clemson team.
Right.
And it just goes on. And we covered this quite a bit last week on the show, but I don't really know what to make of it. I'll tell you what, some of the old reliables are starting to assert themselves.
Yeah.
Your Dukes, your Kansas.
Kansas is looking like the best team in the country. I believe, don't quote me on this, I could look it up, but why do that when I could just yell whatever I want into a microphone?
Sure.
I believe Kansas and Baylor haven't played this week. I think that's going to tell us a lot. I need to see that. Baylor's rattled off 20-some-odd straight at this point.
And they're clubbing people.
Yeah, still the number one team in the country. I want to see how they match up because Kansas, I've watched them a few times recently. They right now, even with everything going on there, look like the best team in the country. Of course, Gonzaga, running past everybody by 40. We all know what the deal is with Gonzaga. We'll see if they can maintain that level when they play some actual Division I competition a little later in March. I was really impressed twice this week. I watched Maryland play, Rick, and this is a team I was high on in the preseason. Then even though they were winning games, they weren't very good on the road, and they kind of looked average. But the last month or so, Maryland has looked good. And this isn't Tom Izzo's best Michigan State team, but if you go into Michigan State on national TV and win a basketball game, you've got my attention. And Maryland, already a top 10 team, gets that win on Sunday. They've got my that could be somebody who's going to be probably a 3 seed, depending on how the Big Ten tournament goes, a 4 seed somewhere in there that could really surprise some people. Well, maybe it won't be a surprise, but I'd be surprised.
And you have Penn State at
How
number
about
9.
That one?
Isn't that? I mean, that
as
is...
a Pitt guy, I don't like talking about it, but that's an impressive job being done out there to have Penn State in the top 10 in basketball. In football, yes. In basketball, that's a wow.
It certainly is, and it's quite impressive, too, to be honest with you. As a matter of fact, you brought up Maryland. You look at the what division is that? I can't remember. the East and West or whatever it is.
Whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Weird.
But you got Maryland at 11-3 in conference, 21-4, and there's Penn State right behind them, 10-4 in conference, 20-5 on the year, ranked number 9. And they both rattled off 8 straight wins.
Right.
And they're looking good. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to run the table and so forth. Like you said, Michigan State, this is starting to be their time of year. They're at 17-9. They're 9-6 in conference. You know they'll be around during the tournament, of course.
Tom Izzo doesn't even pay attention until mid-March, is what I've determined.
I agree. But it's going to be interesting. There's going to be quite a few teams. I think there's a lot of bubble teams in the Big Ten, too.
Indiana's right in there.
Indiana, Michigan, Illinois.
Illinois is good. Illinois is going to be good in a couple of years.
Yeah. Purdue, I mean, they're hanging at 14-12, but they're under 500
I guess
in
they're
conference.
on the wrong side of the bubble there.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to rattle some off. They've lost 2 straight. You just can't do that this time of year. But, this could be very interesting for the Big Ten this year. I mean, Rutgers is going to be in there. Iowa's a good team. I'll tell you what, I don't know, the Big 12, it just seems like Kansas, Baylor, those seemed like such heavyweights.
Oh, absolutely.
But the rest of the conference is kind of
Yeah,
and
that's what we'll find out, and that's where, as we get into this, that'll be fun. So more on that as we get into conference tournaments and we can really start breaking these things down. Rest assured, the Monday after Selection Sunday, you will endure an hour of us picking our brackets, so prepare for that. Just be ready for it. Love it.
And whining and complaining,
Yeah.
and then breaking down the first round games, well, I guess first 2 round games the next week. So.
I will be in attendance of the East Regional games in Cleveland this year.
Yes, you will.
That's what my daughter wanted for Christmas, so I'm very much looking forward to that.
And I'm sure Dad was really upset over
Santa
that,
was
too.
real heartbroken having to provide that. You know what I'm thinking about next year? She's been after me, and I kind of laughed it off. But next year, the Final Four's in Indianapolis, which is the closest it's ever going to get to Western Pennsylvania since they insist on playing these things in a stupid football stadium. And I'm given to understand it's basically an unwatchable experience when you're in person because you're watching a basketball game in a football stadium.
Right.
And it's going to be big bucks. But I'm thinking about doing it. It's kind of one of those bucket list things. I'd like to say I did it one time. You've never done that, have you?
No, not NCAA, but I've been to some of the been to the Masters.
You've been to the Masters?
I used to
How did I not know that?
I don't know. I mean, I used to be a golf course superintendent. You just show them your card and walk in. And
it was a different time, wasn't it?
No, you
still do
can.
that?
Oh yeah.
During Masters weekend.
Yes.
Any golf superintendent in the country.
Yeah,
can
if
just
you're
show
a
up.
member of the Golf Course Superintendent Association of America.
No kidding.
Yeah, you can go in. And we went there a couple of different times. Most times you couldn't because it's springtime, you're working or whatever.
Right.
But
I guess that would be your busy time as well.
Exactly. But no, I mean, I'd still rather watch it on TV. I mean, it's great being there.
Yeah.
Seeing the place is magnificent.
That's another bucket list item. It could be in January. I just want to go see it one time in person. Because I know you really, unless you have something like that, right, you don't have that opportunity. Nobody can see it with their own eyes.
Exactly. I mean, I think give me a luxury box at the Stanley Cup. That's what I want,
That'd be pretty cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I've seen those types of things where you could be local. I've never been to a Stanley Cup final game with the Penguins. I've been to Eastern Conference final games and other playoff games. I've been to NFL playoff games. I've been to AFC championship games. I don't think I've ever been at a championship game, at least at the highest level. So I'm thinking, I'm a Hoops fan and she is. I might try it out. It's going to suck, I have no doubt. I'm going to pay $700 a seat to watch it on the Jumbotron, I'm certain. But I think I'm going to do it one time.
I will say another thing that can be better in person than seeing it on TV or listening to it on a CD or whatever is a concert where somebody actually sounds as good on our CD as in person. And there's very few people that do, but I remember it was a long time ago, probably almost 30 years ago now. It was in the early 90s. We went to see Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And those guys were as pure live, as they were on a stereo system.
Those were before the auto-tune and that type of stuff days where you had to have musical talent to be a successful musician, unlike
exactly.
now.
Yeah, and I mean, it was very unique. They came out and they did like a set of songs, the three of them. Then two of them went off, one stayed on, did like 3 or 4 songs by himself. Then went off. Another one came on, same thing, and they did all 3. Then they all came back out and did them again. I mean, it was magnificent. I mean, it's amazing how much talent is in the drug-filled people. I mean, to tell you.
Well, my bit now is I'm gotten to the age I can't do the big concert. There's nothing more god-awful than a stadium concert. A few years ago,
right.
I met a friend who lives down in Southern Virginia. The middle point was D.C. I met him in D.C. at Dan Snyder's abomination there of a Redskins stadium to see the Guns N' Roses, the first stadium tour where they got back together. And believe me, I was thrilled to see Guns N' Roses come back. I was drunk as a rat, so that was fun. But what an awful experience at a 90,000-seat football stadium to watch it. And even the arena concert I do. So my new bit, the only way you can get me to go to a concert is when a lot of these older acts, even older, not oldies, not classic rock, but that were prevalent in the 90s when I was big into it. You see them now touring a lot, playing in actual concert halls. I saw.
Well, yeah, that's why. Yeah, we were. Well, like I said, Crosby, Stills, Nash. It was at a small amphitheater in Raleigh.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, those things were great. In the 70s, and we're way off topic. We haven't.
That's all right.
It is. It's just sports and music.
It's not worth talking about.
Even in the 70s, Donnie Iris, of course, he's from right around here,
right.
Used to go around a lot of the places he got started.
Ah, yeah.
And you could get in, I don't know what it was back then. It was $5-8 cover charge to get in. He's playing these bars.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right there. Everybody's there just having a good time. That's the kind of concerts that are good.
Yeah, so those were the last two. I don't even know if you know who Three Doors Down is.
Oh, yeah.
My wife's big fan. I liked them. My wife's
I
big
liked
fan.
them, yeah.
And we just dummied across one time after a pit basketball game. Apparently, I didn't even know it existed before that, like an opera place. I don't even know, what would you call that? Just a theater or whatever. Yeah. In the Oakland neighborhood of Pittsburgh where Pitt is. And they had on the marquee, Three Doors Down. Let's check that out. It had a room no bigger than this studio. The sound was unbelievable. And then at the Benedum, which is kind of the big one of those in Pittsburgh, saw John Mellencamp there a few years ago. I'd seen him because that's my wife's favorite artist. So I'd seen him in amphitheaters. I've seen him in arenas. I've seen him everywhere. But in that, that was a wow. It's just the sound quality.
Same story. We were down me and a couple other guys went down to the Tournament Players Championship way back, late 70s, in Jacksonville, Florida. That's when it was still in Ponte Vedra. And at Sawgrass. And we were out, of course, we were drinking and everything, and we're going down.
Not you.
No. And we were going down this one street, and there was like, I don't know, it was like a nightclub converted theater or something like that. See a sign out there, live tonight, Steppenwolf.
Huh.
Okay.
Why, yes, I will, thank you.
So, I mean, it was cool.
Yeah. All right, well, sports, yes. Hello, sports.
Yes.
Let's talk about you.
Why not?
What do we want to? The Astros. Right? I am endlessly fascinated, not necessarily with this sign-stealing thing, but the reaction, the apology, the reaction to the apology, the reaction to the reaction to the apology. I can't, maybe I'm an idiot. Well, I'm an idiot, but for this, I can't get enough of this junk. In watching Cody Bellinger just take a haymaker, just an absolute haymaker. They stole the ring from us. Altuve stole an MVP. And then watching Carlos Correa just come back with a left hook right at him. We could give him this BS about the, Altuve. It wasn't about a buzzer in his shirt. He had an unfinished tattoo his wife didn't want anybody to see.
Yeah.
And essentially, if you don't know the facts, shut the F up. I mean, this is, I can't get enough of this, Rick. I can't get enough of it.
Well, you hit the key word there, this junk. Because, let's face it, everybody in baseball knows they cheated.
Well, they knew going in, and you're hearing more and more of that.
Exactly. So, in perspective, yes, they should be punished. The Astros from the ownership down through the players as well that did the cheating. Right. Make that perfectly clear. Yes, the players should be punished. But on the same token, when there's people in baseball, not on the Astros and stuff, oh yeah, this was knowledge. Why didn't somebody say something?
Yeah.
Why didn't somebody start beating on empty buckets or something? Hey, we're not playing, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the case may be, get out and protest.
Yeah.
There's many avenues you can take, but nobody said anything. Why? Because they were probably cheating, too, in a different way.
Well,
I don't know if that's true or not, but you know what I'm saying? If you're, if you're stealing those CDs over there from me, and I walk in and steal those books from you, you're probably not going to run to the cops.
Yeah.
Saying he stole from me.
The old honor among thieves type of thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Or you could, let's delve deeper into this case. Well,
right.
I don't really want you to.
Let's just leave it. Leave it.
Yeah,
where it
let's
is.
leave well enough alone. Those CDs weren't that good.
Yeah, that's kind of the first thought, right? So is it the snitches get stitches thing where we're going to handle this our way, and now just that it all came to light after Fires brought it up, and now everybody's piling on. I don't know how I feel about it. First of all, Jim Crane, the owner of the Astros, he's a boob. It's just simple as that. Did you watch that press conference of him where he says emphatically that this sign stealing did not alter the game? And then he was asked another question. It was 51 seconds later to the second. 51 seconds later, he said, I didn't say it didn't affect the game. Well, wait, yes, you did. Yeah. In fact, it was less than a minute ago. So this guy's an idiot and completely, almost seemingly unapologetic about it. Where I'm at with this, I like the drama between the players. Mike Trout took a swipe at him. Everybody's taking cuts at. Now it's open season. You know what I mean? But
and this thing's far from over.
Well, and that's the thing. So there was the interview with Rob Manfred over the weekend. I think it was yesterday, wasn't it? And he talked about, because the first reaction is going to be they're within the first 3 spring training games, whatever the first spring training games where Astros regulars get in at bat or two, somebody's going to hit the ground, and there's going to be a bench clearing brawl in spring training that early on. This is part of the culture of baseball. This is going to happen to the Astros all year, specifically Carlos Correa. If he's going to go out there, and now he's the strong man for all this, right?
Yeah.
So he's going to end up on his butt. And Manfred's saying, there's going to be a heightened awareness. There's going to be suspensions for players and pitchers who are trying to injure Astros players. And at first blush, it's like, yeah, I hate that stuff. That's a culture I think it's time to go away, that every time somebody, hurts your feelings, you blast a 99-mile-an-hour fastball in their ear hole. That needs to go. At the same time, so you did this. I felt aggrieved by it. I don't feel particularly aggrieved because I'm not a fan of anybody they beat. I'm not, they didn't steal a World Series from me. They didn't steal an MVP from me. So I'm looking at this from an outside view. But so I'm upset and I do something. I come in spikes high, I brush you back, I hit you in the ear hole, whatever it is. I'm facing an increased suspension for this because you've warned me. But the guys who did this got immunity and faced no suspension. That's a weird little juxtaposition.
And the thing is, too, Rick, a lot of these guys aren't with the Astros any longer. So now that brings other teams into this whole vendetta, as you put it in a way, and things could start happening between Team X and Team Y. It has nothing to do with the Astros presently,
right?
But it did. And Justin Turner took it a step further and basically said, "Look, they don't believe, or they don't deserve a ring. Period. Take them away." He says, championships are earned. They didn't earn them, and I don't know. I tend to agree in a way.
Yeah,
it's. What do you do? You know what I'm saying? Can you give it to the Nationals? That's
the Nationals won it. It's the Dodgers.
Oh, excuse me, the Dodgers. Yes, right.
This is why Bellinger, Turner. I'm all for the Dodgers being pissed off. They got wrong.
Oh,
they
sure.
feel like it's no guarantee they'd have still won that series, but they feel that way, and of course they feel that way. They were in that game. So, yeah, it's weird because that's the funny thing, too, right? It's real easy to blast the Astros and this is going to happen and players feel comfortable. From the Nationals, you bring them up. Will Harris signed with the Astros this offseason. He was with the Astros, or signed with the Nationals this offseason. He was with the Astros that year. And Sean Doolittle apparently is the, I think I'm smarter than everybody else spokesman for the Washington Nationals. And he's out there taking swipes at the Astros. And he asked, well, you got Will Harris on the team. Well, I talked to him. I've forgiven Will Harris for it. But the rest of these guys, they all got to die. It's like, so I think you see a lot of that amongst teams. I wonder how much of it's fake bluster. It's a weird
I don't know.
situation.
I mean, you saw that. I don't know if you saw the press conference with Rob Manfred.
Yeah.
And instead of defusing it, all he did basically was reignite it. And for for our English-speaking friends,
indeed,
for those of you who did not hear or see the quote, Justin Turner again spoke out. He's devaluing the World Series, and this is the direct quote from Manfred. The idea of an asterisk or asking for a piece of metal back seems like a futile act. People will always know something was different about the 2017 season, and whether we made that decision right or wrong, we undertook a thorough investigation and had the intestinal fortitude to share the results of the investigation, even when those results were not very pretty.
Yeah,
that's a Tomlinism right there. I mean, a lot of talking, but didn't say anything.
Well, and what jumps off the page with that, Rick, is simply the referring to your trophy in your league that you're the commissioner of.
Right.
Was it a piece of metal, a piece of tin? What did he say? Whatever it was.
A piece of metal.
Yeah. So I agree with him to a degree. Now, it's nothing a commissioner could say, but we've talked about this before. Vacating the championship is futile. Everybody's still got the T-shirts. Everybody's still got the rings. Everybody who's an Astros fan got to celebrate that night. They got to go buy a T-shirt. The players got to go on the 3-day bender and have the on-field. Speaking of the the
Nationals knocking their hats all over the place.
Just fell off the wall here in the studio. So all of that. So I always felt like that when they do it in the NCAA all the time. That's futile. It happened. You remember it as a fan. But, boy, coming from the commissioner and saying that about your trophy, the greatest prize in your sport, that's
a piece of metal.
Yeah, that's just stupid.
In other words, you get paid a lot of money, chill out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so, but here's where we're at with it. So that apology is universally agreed that they botched it. Jim Crane was awful. Altuve was insincere. It goes on and on. Everybody agrees it was awful. But they apologized, or what their version of an apology is going to be at this point. What else can they do? I mean, this thing just keeps getting whipped up. What else are they supposed to do?
Right.
They've essentially, at least in the beginning, acknowledged it happened. We're kind of sorry about it. My bad. What else do you want them to do?
I think it would have been taken care of if they took the iron fist on everybody from the very beginning. These players getting off scot-free is ludicrous.
That's the problem.
Yeah. And we talked about this before, with the Barry Bonds and the Mark McGuires, and where they took steroids. Well, okay, these guys cheated. Oh no, it was management.
No.
Where is this double standard where only management was involved in cheating?
Right.
But only players involved in steroid use. Yeah, it makes no sense. It's inconsistent, and it's no wonder people are mad at baseball, and I'm raising my hand because I'm one of them.
I, for one, can't get enough of it. I hope this goes on forever. I hope we find out another team did something even crazier. This is – because that's the thing, and I honestly wonder, to your point way back at the beginning of this, if everybody knew about it, why did nothing get said until one player blew the whistle? Everybody's got some skeletons chattering in their closet right now, and now everybody's getting chesty. This is step one. There's somebody on the Astros who's going to get hit by a pitch who wasn't involved, who's going to get punched in the face coming out of a brawl for something wasn't involved in. He's going to say, oh, yeah, when I played for Club X, hell, we were doing this. That was way worse than that. And on it goes. This is going to be never ending, and I, for one, can't wait for it.
We'll find out because I think this thing is far from being over.
Yeah, it isn't going to go away anytime soon. All right, well, let's pivot from that. Let's head to the National Football League. I think the big news over the weekend and today, Myles Garrent met with Lord Goodell. He has been reinstated, but then doubled down on his assertion that Mason Rudolph used the N-word in that sparking off that altercation that led to him clubbing him over the head with a helmet. Of course, Mason Rudolph vehemently denies it. Most depending on your bent on these type of things, either people believe it 100% or it's absolute balderdash, and There seems to be nothing in between. Mike Tomlin coming out to Rudolph's defense even more today. This is what we call a sticky wicket, Rick. This one here, this is crazy to me.
Well, I am certainly don't like to prejudge anything, obviously, but basically all the facts that are to be had have been had. There's no audio. There's no player witnesses from the Steelers nor the Browns that can confirm anything that Rudolph said. And if you watch that film, there's a scrum of guys right by Rudolph, and he didn't whisper nothing.
They were never alone.
No, They were never alone. Garrett really never was as close to him as some of the other guys, once it really started. And nobody was whispering. Everybody was yelling and screaming at each other. And, in the fit of anger or rage or whatever you want to call it, I mean, you just like us. We started arguing about something, we naturally get louder.
Yeah.
We're not sitting here going like this, Rick.
Yeah. Watch this. I'm going to hurt Rick's feelings.
Yeah.
Hey, come here.
Yeah, I just don't buy it. And, you look at Garrett's past, he seems like a nice guy away from the football field, but he's had plenty of issues on the field.
Yeah, that's true.
And it just doesn't add up to me. And I think he, like you said right at the beginning of the story, he's reinstated. Let it go. I mean, you're lucky you're still in football.
Well, and that's what makes me curious about this thing, because it hasn't made any sense, and maybe it's just I don't even know here's what hasn't made sense to me. So, minutes after the game, when he should have been at his most upset, at his hottest, you remember he essentially said, look, that was way out of line. I make no excuse for my action. I crossed the line, and I accept whatever they do to me at this point. And then several days later, that comes out, and that gets shuffled out. Nothing really happens. But he continues to say, I accept full responsibility for my actions. I make no excuse. But there's this.
Yeah,
right?
However.
And then, my understanding, I don't think we know for sure, but at least what's being floated out there, it was kind of the same thing in his meeting with Goodell that got him reinstated. Look, I lost my head. I take full responsibility. I make no excuses for it. It was just one of those things. It isn't going to happen again. I'm a changed man. And he goes down, he sits down with Mina Kimes, however you say her name. He reiterates it. I make no excuses for it. But, yeah, he did call me that, and that set me off. So you're either making no excuses for it or this is an excuse. Because here's the thing. If it was true, that's a pretty damn good excuse for whacking somebody in the head with a helmet, right? Yeah. It doesn't justify it, I suppose, by the letter of the law and the rules of the game. But if that were true, so don't tell me you're not making an excuse and then give me an excuse, right? What I'm struck by, here's the thing, how you're never going to solve this, and this is the problem. You already see it all over social media right now, is, they say, well, the league investigated, they found no audio of this. Everybody who wants to believe this says, well, there's audio of it, but the league can't have that getting out. They made it disappear. That was
cover up. Yes.
That was destroyed that day. And so then,
and not to interrupt you, but this isn't Tom Brady accused of saying this is Mason Rudolph. Yeah. If they had audio of it, they could care less if Mason Rudolph stayed in the league.
Right, exactly. But, the league don't want that smoke. I think I read that tweet today. I'm not 100% certain I know what that means, but I think it means they don't want all the nonsense kind of around that. And then if they produce audio, let's say they find out, holy cow, Marquise Pouncey had mic in his helmet, or had a mic in his helmet, and we hear the whole thing, and Mason Rudolph never said that. Those same people are going to say, well, it was on there. The league erased that part. They don't want that smoke. You know, so people who choose to believe it, and that's my problem with it. If Mason Rudolph did this, he should be out of the league.
Of course.
It can't happen. But you have to be able to prove it. And you can't just throw that around. And what bothers me, and what bothers Mike Tomlin, if you saw his interview with Stephen A. Smith this morning, it was so Mike Tomlin, first of all. Measured, calm, but honest to a fault, who said, you know, and he took a swipe at ESPN himself, that after Garrett did that interview with Kimes and said, then they talked about it as if it had happened and it just wasn't able to be proven. And Tomlin's basically saying, this is nonsense. If there's no proof, you can't say it did happen, but we can't prove it. It didn't happen. And he said, I was on the field. My players, his teammates were on the field. Other Browns were on the field. I talked to people in the Browns organization. This was never a thing. The way you're handling this is unacceptable and irresponsible. But this is ESPN now, Rick. They want desperately for this to be true. I was listening. I was driving around town yesterday, messing around with the Sirius. And I don't know how I ended up on some national show, ESPN radio show. And they were talking about this, and I paused on it briefly. And there's a guy named Jonathan Hood. I don't know who that is.
I've heard the name.
Doesn't matter who he is.
Right.
So they're talking about this, and they're having the typical ESPN conversation of, you know, how this is an awful thing, race relations in sports and in America and everything. But this guy, Jonathan Hood, I don't know his background. I don't know if he's black, white, green. I don't know anything about him. But he says, he starts his out with it. He's real slow and he's real somber, and he says, you know, the way I look at it is, I choose to believe this happened. And then he went on for 20 minutes on how, because he chose to believe it happened, all the fallout that should come from it. Now, what are you talking about?
Right.
I choose to believe I'm a millionaire.
Yeah.
Give me a Bentley. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'm naive. I just have a hard time believing, as a guy who grew up playing sports myself, not to this level, but grew up playing sports, you know, kind of coming from a sheltered background. And when you're playing sports and playing on bigger things, you encounter, you know, lots of different people, lots of different cultures. Here's a guy who is a Division I athlete in a sport that's primarily African-American, through college, through the pros. If a guy had these beliefs,
people know about it.
This would have happened long ago. We'd have heard about it. You know what this is all about? I don't want to get political here. I don't even remember why, but apparently people have decided that Mason Rudolph is a Donald Trump fan. I don't know if he said that, if he got caught in a MAGA hat or something, but that's what this is. They've decided he supports Donald Trump, so therefore he's a racist, therefore he said this. I think that's all this is.
And it's, you know, social media perverts everything, because you talk about some of the tweets and everything that you've seen. I saw a couple of tweets, I think it was, I don't know, a couple days ago, but one of them said, Myles Garrent swung a piece of plastic. Not what I would consider a gun. Let's move on, folks.
What?
Okay.
So if he came out with a knife because it's not a gun, he shouldn't have been suspended?
Well,
is that the argument?
Trying to make it sound like it wouldn't have really mattered. It's just a piece of plastic. I mean, not a big deal. I mean, okay, yeah, if he hits him in the head and splits his skull open, is it maybe a little different, but he missed?
Yeah,
It's okay. It's just... They believe what they want to believe, regardless of
everybody has
any
decided.
Evidence or any facts.
And that's the whole world now, right?
Of course. And I just, you know, I choose to believe, as Mr. Hood would say, I choose to believe that if you're on a team and your brothers that are protecting you on that line, You're not going to disparage them. You're not going to be screaming racial slurs around like this is just normal. So, I meant it for this guy.
Right.
No, it doesn't work that way, folks.
No, they'd have joined Myles Garrent.
Oh, they'd have stomped him into a
it doesn't have to be
spot.
the black players. David DeCastro, I like to believe, would have knocked him out cold had he heard Mason Rudolph say
that. Pouncey would have handed Garrett his helmet. Here, you missed.
And that's what and Mike Tomlin put it best. That this isn't he's known Mason Rudolph for how many years now. This isn't in his character. So maybe that's what I choose to believe. But here's what I don't have to choose to believe. There's nothing backing this up. And I'm swayed.
That's the big thing.
I'm swayed by the fact that, at one time or other, as soon as today and Mike Tomlin, obviously Mason Rudolph, which I don't know how much weight that carries in a he said, she said, but DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey, anybody in the Steelers organization has said definitively, I was there, this didn't happen. Myles Garrett's yelling this from the rooftops, crickets. There's no other Browns players saying, yeah. Even if they say, I didn't hear this, but he mentioned this to me coming off the field, or he only reacts when something to this level. No, now, his coach got fired, but I'm sure some of the people were still around the organization.
There was a reason the coach got fired, and it wasn't because of that.
Right, but what I'm saying is there's no coach coming to Myles Garrett. Somebody you think would have said yes.
Of course.
At least in a fit of anger when we got back to the locker room, he said that this whatever happened. So I don't know. Like I said, if we find out later it's true, whatever happens I'll be the first one to put a boot in
Then
Mason
I'll
Rudolph's
say,
hind.
Rick, I was surprised and really wrong about Mason Rudolph, but I just don't think that that's going to happen because it just doesn't see. The NFL is not going to cover up something like that.
No,
They will not tolerate any of that kind of stuff. I mean, there's no room for that kind of stuff in any sport, in any organization, period.
Yes.
But, hey, tell us what you think. silentfootball@gmail.com. It's Just Sports 123 at gmail.com. This is It's Just Sports. We're Fleeger and Briggs on the 12-ounce Sports Network. And speaking of Mike Tomlin, just real briefly, we hit on his little comments about Antonio Brown. I mean, this is classic Tomlinism.
I saw this.
Quoting Mike Tomlin on talking about Antonio Brown. And the question, I guess considering whether or not Brown would be welcome back to the Steelers. And Coach Tomlin, this is quoting, I'll say this, once a Steeler, always a Steeler, Tomlin said of Brown, the Steelers' 6th-round pick in the 2010 draft. We had great success over the course of 9+ years with Antonio. We're always going to be interested in his growth and development as a man, and we'll be open to assisting him in that, but we have no current business interests at this time.
No current.
In other words, thanks, but no thanks, bub.
I mean, if you just stopped before that last sentence, you'd walk away thinking, he's thinking about it. He would bring him back. And then he doesn't say, but we don't want that in our organization. We moved on. We have no current business interests. That's I don't care how many.
In other words, this guy's a cancer in the locker room. We've gotten rid of it, and it ain't coming back.
Yeah. just so Mike Tomlin. All right, let's stick with the Steelers here, Rick. It's getting very Homer-centric here for us in Western Pennsylvania, but this one
always
really
something happening with Pittsburgh the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's always the drama always does seem to spin around that locker room. But former Panther Thomas Davis, did you see his comments on the NFL Network about Ben Roethlisberger?
Yes.
This is crazy to saying he essentially quit on the Steelers. He looked around at the way the year started and at the personnel and just decided, apparently based on nothing, Thomas Davis decided there was a better alternative than the surgery that Roethlisberger could have done and played this year and essentially chose not to. Where did this come from? What in the world?
I don't know. We've talked for years on Ben being a drama queen. He will moan and
Davis
groan.
said that.
Who?
He started it with that. He said, Ben likes the drama. So when he first started, I thought, all right, now we're about to agree. And then he made a hard laugh.
Yeah.
Hard laugh.
I mean, we know, he likes to moan and groan. He's the Pittsburgh version of Roberto Clemente
he's the modern
in football.
Day Clemente, exactly.
He's always aching. He's always sore. He can't do this, and he'll go out and kill you.
Right.
But, to call him out like that is, boy, I don't even know how to word that. I would say dangerous if you're on the Steelers.
You could take it there. Yeah certainly. Saying that Because he had the surgery, but perhaps Davis is a doctor and I don't know it and is aware of a quicker treatment other than the reconstructive elbow surgery. But as we sit here on Monday, well, I guess we're live, so I don't have to do that like I do on podcast. As we sit here now, he's got a doctor's appointment Thursday to determine if he can begin light rehab at this point. So at no point after the surgery was coming back an option. I can't understand. This is weird. What is it? Is it the moaning and groaning? Is it the sexual assault things that happened early in his career? I don't mean to minimize that, but there was those incidents that went on. The media, specifically ESPN. Now, this wasn't ESPN. This is the NFL Network. But the media really, really seems to dislike Ben Roethlisberger. They blamed him for the Antonio Brown thing. Now we're seeing, all right, well, maybe that wasn't Ben. They blamed him for Le'Veon Bell, and we found out, all right, well, maybe that wasn't Ben. Well, what is it about? I don't particularly care. I don't know him personally.
There's something about his demeanor that turns people off, i.e., mass blocks on Twitter.
Do you know we're one of them? Did you look?
Oh, yeah, we're blocked. We've never contacted them, ever.
One time.
I mean, why would you block us? We have no clue. Don't follow them, nothing.
No.
I just saw, the only reason I found out is somebody said, hey, Ben Roethlisberger blocked me. Are you guys? And sure enough, we were. I mean, I don't know why.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not that impressed with him. I don't need to tweet to him. But, yeah, I mean, there are just certain things of that nature, plus some of the things in his past. People don't forget that.
Right.
I don't like the way people throw terms around like he's a rapist.
Right.
Look, he's had some sketchy stuff in the past, and I don't know all the details, but to start throwing names out like that,
right? Exactly.
I mean, that's dangerous stuff. But no, he's not real popular, and I don't know why when it comes to, other than he doesn't have a very good demeanor. He does seem smug.
Oh, certainly.
He does seem standoffish, almost like, the minions stay away. And that's a lot of it, I'm sure. Brett Favre, I mean, he was, he was slapping backs and drinking beer with him and this, that, and the other. But, Ben's not that way. Maybe he doesn't intentionally because of his past. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, a lot of that he brings on himself. Now, as far as players and so forth coming in on top of him, do they know something we don't know, or is it just sour grapes? From inside the locker room, that kind of thing. Antonio Brown attacking him
right
when he left. And then now all of a sudden he's the greatest thing since sliced bread because he wants a job.
Yeah, now he needs a job,
right?
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm certainly not privy to everything back behind the stage. I think it's probably a little both ways. Ben maybe wants to be a little more private, but he is a little arrogant and standoffish, and it just doesn't, it starts grating against people.
Like I said, I'm just struck by, the way, especially the ESPN shows. I'm blaming them, and they had nothing to do with this one. Like I said, Thomas Davis is on the NFL Network. But the way, they laid all of that dysfunction with the Steelers and with Antonio Brown and Levy and all that stuff that happened last offseason, they laid it 100% at the feet of Ben Roethlisberger. We're finding out now. And I was persuaded by some of it, you know what I mean? If you're an Antonio Brown with a huge personality, a Le'Veon Bell with a huge personality and a huge ego, those two, but you put them together and they don't equal the ego of a Ben Roethlisberger. I was persuaded by some of it, but you see how then last season went and think, this wasn't on Roethlisberger whatsoever.
Right.
It is kind of funny. I did see this earlier, so I'm stealing this off of Twitter. But maybe this is what this is dumb, but maybe here's what Thomas Davis was bitter about. In Ben's 4 career games against the Panthers, and therefore Thomas Davis, a 4-0 record, a 73% completion percentage, 969 yards, 9 touchdowns, and no interceptions.
Yeah.
there may be a little bit of. I wouldn't think that would have anything to do with it, but. It just made, but that one was just a stunner out of absolute left field. Look, if he had sat there and said, I don't think he's going to be able to come back, I don't think he'd been that good for the last 2 years. He couldn't get along with Antonio Brown and the superstars. They're not going to get any good free agents because all of that would be fair. But this,
I know.
He quit on his team by having reconstructive elbow surgery. What now? That's all I can say. What now? That was my answer.
The thing that is concerning, though, he had the surgery right away after he was done. It was like a week or two after he pulled out of that game.
Yeah,
and he still hasn't thrown even a tennis ball.
No, it's supposed to be Thursday. You find out if that stuff can start.
And I mean that's scary. I don't know the extent of it. I don't know if they totally replaced a tendon or a ligament.
It was close to Tommy John, but it wasn't what it didn't make sense to me.
I wasn't real sure. It wasn't Tommy John, but it was similar in severity, I guess.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Time will tell.
Well, I hope it's all right with Kevin Colbert saying they have no interest in bringing in another quarterback because they are comfortable with who they have in the room. Well, that makes one of us there, Kevin Colbert.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess my plan of bringing in Jameis Winston isn't going to happen, apparently, as a Steeler.
Or anybody, Matt Stafford, somebody.
Bring Landry Jones back, for the love of God. So we do all this talking about Mason Rudolph, and I can't get him out of town fast enough, and I stand by that. Take that smoke elsewhere.
Right. Well, let's see. Getting ready. I mean, we're February, a couple months away still, but Adam Scott took down the Genesis at Riviera over the weekend. I don't know if you watched any of that. I did. I watched some of that.
More so because I'm that golf fan. While Tiger was in contention, I didn't have a lot of interest yesterday after he decided, I'm done shooting under par this week.
Well, yeah. I mean, he was done after the first day. That was horrible. He ended up plus 11 for the tournament, dead last of the cut makers. And but Adam Scott, he played well at Riviera. And I'm not sure. I came across this piece by Kyle Porter on CBS Sports, talking that a win at Riviera should mean more. It just means more. I don't know why. They've been playing at Riviera for years and years. They've been playing. They played the L.A. Open, I think, way back in the day, 60s and 70s at Riviera. I don't understand why all of a sudden, the Genesis is supposed to be like the fifth major or something, the way he's talking.
Because this donkey finally got to go cover it, so now he thinks I'm
apparently
I'm too nubs to cover the Masters, so this is my major, so it needs more attention. I don't know. Maybe
he comes up with this thing. The problem is that great tournaments are only as great as the players that show up and the courses they're on. If only 5 players showed up for this year's U.S. Open at some random TPC course, it's not still great because it's the U.S. Open. That's not how it works. The U.S. Open is great because everybody shows up for the U.S. Open on a classic venue.
They all show up because it's the U.S. Open.
Right, exactly. They don't all show up because it's the Genesis. Now,
I think what he's saying, they all showed up, so it should be a big deal.
Yeah, well, they showed up because they like playing Riviera out in the coast, I'm sure.
Well, and here's the problem, right? And this is why it's not a bigger deal. If they played this thing in July or August, it might be a bigger deal. It's the second week of frickin' February. Nobody, east of the Grand Canyon's thinking about golf yet unless Tiger Woods is involved. So that's why it's that early in the calendar. You have it that early because it's in San Diego, because it's beautiful. That's why the players go. There's a big purse, but it's not a big deal because nobody's paying attention because it's the second week of February. The Super Bowl just wrapped up. The Daytona 500 was supposed to happen. It got rained out. College basketball is just getting rolling. The XO. There's a lot of other stuff going on, whereas when the Masters starts, when the U.S. Open, they're only competing with Major League Baseball. So enough of that. It's junk. Just junk.
I just didn't. I just thought that was just a weird piece trying to get this as something more than it is. I mean, Riviera has, in its own right, has hosted a U.S. Open and 2 PGA titles. So, it's not like this isn't a great course. We know it's a great course.
Right.
But, there's other ones. There's, the TPC course. There's
apparently he doesn't care for the TPC.
No, apparently
courses.
not. There's Seminole that does not host tournaments. Is a great golf course. And Bethpage Black, of course, is a great golf course. But if they played the Genesis at it, that doesn't mean it's a major.
Right, yeah, just because
right.
It was a U.S. Open. Is that where the Open is this year?
No.
Isn't it at Bethpage?
No, I don't think so.
I thought it was.
You cover
Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. This is another, stuck in the now.
Wingfoot this year. And, God, I hope they don't grow 2 feet rough like they normally do at Wingfoot.
Last time they were there, it looked like hay fields.
Every time I've seen it, since 74 when Hale Irwin, I think, shot 9 over par or something of that nature, 6 over, something like that, and won. So, yeah, I mean, I just make it a nice golf course. I don't care if they shoot 15 under.
Yeah.
If the rough is enough to penalize them, where you don't get a good bite on the ball or you have to pitch and lay up or something like that, that's fine. But the greens that do not need to be like pool tables where a pitching wedge still rolls off the back.
Right.
And they don't need to be burning up, in the middle of a 75-degree day. Throw a little water on them. Let them hold a shot if it's a good shot.
Yeah, we'll start screaming about that a lot more in June, I'm certain. But, yeah, something I always worry about. Sorry, Rick, we got a few minutes left here. XFL Week 2 in the book. Where are you at on the XFL?
Meh.
Did you watch any of it?
A little bit.
I tried. I can't
just
get a
tough.
lather build-up. I can't.
No, it's tough because this is the time of year where the NFL's over. I'm really starting to pick up, paying attention and picking up knowledge in college basketball and the NHL because,
right.
The March Madness and the playoffs are going to be coming soon. And, I want to be knowledgeable of that. Plus, I just like it a lot better.
Right.
Because football's over. The NFL is over. Now, they throw a football league in now. Look, they had the Genesis on. They had some college basketball games on. They had a Penguin game on I watched. So, I'm fine. I don't need more football. If all we talked about was football, maybe. We could talk about rule changes. We could talk about the 3-point play and all this other kind of stuff. But the caliber of play is still not that good.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw what bad quarterback play can do, what little that I've seen in the XFL.
That's exactly what the problem is.
It is miserable.
Yeah. This could be interesting if these games were played in the 30s and 40s. You might be able to grab my attention. And I am not one of these millennial D-bags that they're trying to form every pro league around now.
What do you mean in the 30s and 40s? What are you talking about?
The games were played 40, somebody was scoring 40 points, 30 points. These games are all 19-16.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm not one of these millennials where baseball has to be done in an hour and a half and everything has to be a home run. And the NBA, I want to see 160 points scored. And what all these sports are doing, I'm not one of those people. And I don't like every game in the NFL being 45-38. I really don't.
No.
I still like defense. I like a defensive battle. But this being something off the radar, something out of nowhere, watching somebody grind out a 19-16 game, you're just not going to catch my attention. And it's less about the defenses playing well. We talked about this last week. It is the quarterback play being so god-awful.
It is.
That they can't move the football. That they can't score. I watched I actually flipped over intentionally because the one game I watched a little bit that involved Dallas last week, they kept telling us, look, this is bad. We get you, but Landry Jones, he's going to be the best quarterback in the league, and he's going to be black next week, and you watch.
Pretty bad game,
and so
wasn't
I flipped it over, and he looked like Landry Jones, who played for the Steelers, first of all. And then I found myself thinking, I said, Rick, that's what I call myself at home, is Rick. Rick, you're sitting here breathlessly waiting for Landry Jones to show you what good quarterback play is.
We already saw what Landry Jones could do.
I flipped it back to the rain delay of the Daytona 500. It was just there's a place for it. And I'll tell you what, there's some bad look. I feel like at least the quarterback plays bad. I think most people agree with that. The play isn't that great. Look, D.C., they still filled up that soccer stadium.
Right.
In Seattle, they had 30,000 people there. I think there's a place for it. It's going to be a niche, but there's going to be a place for it. I hope it goes well. Maybe as it grows, as it goes on, I can work up something for it, but I just don't know how the play ever gets better, how you ever get the quarterback play better when they can't find 32 good NFL quarterbacks. Now you got to find 8 more. I don't know. I hope it survives. I think there's room for it.
I root for it, and I think that it would be a good place for player development to get back to the NFL. They claim it's not going to be a minor league, but let's face it, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think betting and fantasy will keep it alive. I truly do, because there's still interest in.
And if it could catch my attention, I would participate in that, and then maybe I would be more interested.
And I'll tell you
it can't grab my attention.
This is the time right now. If you're going to bet on the XFL, do it.
Just bet the under.
I mean, you look at the Guardian Defender game over the weekend. It was like +7. It was 27-0. I mean, the odds makers are having a rough time because
they don't know who any of these donkeys are either.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I root for it, and I think it will make it. But am I going to be a really stout fan? Probably not.
No.
But I may start paying attention.
All right, Rick, we got 3 minutes left. I have to get to this. It is Rick Briggs' dream scenario, Rick Briggs' Valhalla. If you don't know, if you're new to us on the 12-Ounce Sports Network, Rick Briggs is a noted alcoholic. And
that is not true.
This story is right up your alley. Noted and proud drunk.
What am I drinking here? I am drinking decaffeinated coffee because why? I am a healthy person.
With Bailey's in it, I'm certain. All right, Rick. Well, there's no byline on it, so I'll just read this. India residents surprised to find beer, brandy, rum mixture coming out of their kitchen faucets.
Wow.
Residents in an apartment building in India discovered free mixed drinks on tap in their kitchens earlier this week, although not the kind anyone would have hoped for. A smelly combination of beer, brandy, and rum started coming out of the faucets in Kerala on Monday after a water well became contaminated. The station says 6,000 liters of confiscated alcohol had been seized on court orders and buried in a pit nearby and accidentally seeping into the soil and therefore being pulled from the ground and into the apartment. Rick, it is your dream scenario.
Wow. Brandy, beer, and rum.
All mixed together. Talk about a hurricane. Yeah, buddy.
I mean, to tell you, that's something else. But I got a couple of facts for you since we have a couple minutes left.
We got a minute. Let's have them.
Did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts?
I did not.
So do squids. 1 pumps blood to their whole system, and 2 are dedicated just to the gills.
I'll be darned.
Isn't that something? And then there's also supermarket apples. Do you know how old, if you buy some supermarket apples?
I don't want to think about this.
Do you know how old that they can be?
3 weeks.
A year.
Oh, good God.
A year. Okay. And did you know, this is one that I thought was just quite fascinating, sloths can hold their breath longer than a dolphin.
I don't know how long a dolphin can hold their breath.
About 10 minutes. And a sloth can slow their heart rate and hold their breath up to 40 minutes. That's something.
Who knew?
Yeah. Who knew? And one more, and ice pops. You know what ice pops are?
Yeah.
They were invented by an 11-year-old by accident.
Just froze his Kool-Aid, I take it?
Basically, it was called soda powder and water outside. It was in 1905. He left it with a little stick in it, and it froze.
Now he's a millionaire.
And he's dead now, but he grew up, and patented it, and they turned the name into Popsicles because he was a father then, and they started calling them Popsicles.
Well, there we go. Always learning something, so.
Drop us a line, asylumfootball@gmail.com, or it's just sports123@gmail.com.
And, of course, follow everything over at 12-Ounce Sports Network, 12OunceSportsNetwork.com, at 12OZ Sports on Twitter. And, of course, check out Seat Giant. Use the promo code 12Ounce Sports. Get yourself to a game. We'll be back next week. More fun, more frivolity. I'm out of F's, so till next time, we'll see you.
Take care.